Hello and welcome to Share.care's What is Manly radio show and podcast. Men feel more lonely, lost, and not useful in society than ever in history. Males are not attaching to school, work, or women. What it means to be a man appears lost. Is there a framework for being manly that we can unearth?
Welcome to Share.care, an all-inclusive community sharing experience, strength, and hope to create strong, healthy, and inspiring relationships. Share.care communities work toward every individual feeling safe, valued, and heard, free from the threat of danger, pain, or harm. Each episode, founder Damian Andrews explores the principles underpinning Share.care and invites expert special guests to share their knowledge so you can easily reap the benefits so many others experience. You hold the choice to create your future. Let it be with strong, healthy, and inspiring relationships.
I will say good morning, Jeremiah, because I know it's early morning where you are.
Yeah,
Thank you for making the time of getting up. It's just past midnight, from what I understand, where you're in Toronto, and for me it's afternoon. And I'm looking at sunny skies and a beautiful background, so I'm just rubbing that in a little bit there. For the audience,
is it actually afternoon? I thought it was 9 p.m. Are you?
And 2 p.m. here where I am.
Okay.
Beautiful sunny day. I'm down at the beach house. I've got this beautiful view out the window here. If I look out that window that way, which the audience can't see. I've got this, a little reserve that I walk through and takes me to the beach. So, kind of, but and you're staying up till past midnight. So it's past your bedtime, naughty boy. So.
Yeah, I know. Well, I didn't know. I didn't know it was 2 p.m. I'm really jealous now. Fuck. Oh my god.
Well, I have been up since 5 a.m. So
okay, fair.
It's been a busy day. But anyway, for the audience, I've got Jeremiah Ukponrefe here. Now, he's an author and a stand-up comedian. He's written several articles in different magazines. He's also got a debut sci-fi novel called Hive, which is the first of an Arcane Volumes Series. Now, his comedian style is a bit of a mixture of clever observations and subversive. I can't speak. English is my second language. I don't have a first one. But, of dark humor, let's put it that way. And he performs it all under the veil of innocence. He's also performed in many festivals, and he's the founder of a comedy production company, Punching Sideways Productions. Jeremiah, it's such a pleasure to have you on the show. How are you?
Tired. No, but I'm happy to be here. I'm happy that I stuck it out and was like, I have this podcast, I gotta hop on. So yeah.
I'm really grateful that you did, actually, because I was sitting there getting all ready for it. But thank you.
Yeah.
And the podcast that we're doing is we're talking about in this subset under the Share.care global umbrella is what is manly, because in today's world, it seems there are a number of men that feel lost, they feel lonely, they feel unsure of their place in the world. From your perspective, where you are and from what you've experienced, what have you seen in that area?
In terms of like men being lost, or
yeah, just
I mean, I definitely see a lot of it, and especially when I put it in regards to how I feel like when I was 18, 19, when you're an adult, I didn't have a framework of what I was supposed to do or who I was supposed to be, but yet there were certain expectations from certain people of what I was supposed to be. So, I wasn't a complete screw up, but I just was really lost. I just, I didn't know what to do. I feel like there's a lack of initiation into actually manhood, and there's no rituals that are, okay, you're a man now. It's just there's so many different ideas of how it actually works.
It's interesting that you mentioned that lack of initiation. I was talking with someone and they were reminding me of it was actually, they said it was the Industrial Revolution that caused part of this problem, because before that, what you'd have is your tribes, or even, it wasn't even tribes, but it was just what would happen is someone would be a carpenter, say, and the son would follow the dad around and be a carpenter, and
Yeah.
they'd learn that, and that would move on, and they went even back further when we was talking to a biologist about that, and this back in cave, the well, it was prehistoric times. I'm going to say it that way. You'd have a thing like a tool that was invented, an axe that didn't change, so we all had fairly clear, defined roles.
Mm.
And I look at it from my dad's perspective. He worked in the same organization his entire career. Do you think part of that relates to that feeling lost, is that we have so many choices now, and rather than just being, we had to do what we had to do?
Well, I think it's more about just lacking male figures in your life. I think
Hmm.
that it's better that you get your own choice
Yeah.
of like, oh, this is what I want to do. I think it's better to have more options
Hmm.
because I would want to do what my dad did. I'm
Yeah.
very happy that I've gotten to choose careers and things that I want to do. But I think a lot of it just comes from a lack of having strong male figures in an individual's life.
Yeah. From your perspective, if you don't mind going there, what was, when you say about you didn't want to do what your dad wanted to do, what was the difference? Where did that fit?
Well, my dad, he's more of a office job guy, so he
Yeah,
does just works for the government,
I
just
get
does so it's
it.
very stuff like that. And the funny thing is, like, I actually have an office job. I work in advertising, but that's something that's interesting to me. And
Yeah,
marketing is like that's interesting stuff. I just got a new job recently, so it's like, but if I had just followed the path of my dad, I would be doing work that I'm not interested in. I wouldn't like my life. I wouldn't be very happy. So, yeah.
what was the difference? Did your dad or your mum encourage you to do what your dad did, or how did that work from that
No,
perspective?
I was always given pretty free reign of kind of do what you want,
Mm,
except in certain areas. Like when I dropped out of university, I never finished university or school or anything, but like that was they wanted me to go back, but I just knew that it wasn't the thing for me, so I
mm,
wasn't really afraid to tell them no as an adult because it was time to make my own choices. But they were encouraging to the point where unless it was this is what I want, you know, it was like, yeah, so that was so it was for me.
So in university, because that's one that's come up a lot as well with men, is it's only about 40% of men get higher education. What was the dropping out of university? What prompted you to do that?
There was actually multiple reasons. I think the main one was I had a quote unquote real job when I was in university.
Yeah.
So then I just had the realization that you can get certain jobs without a degree,
Mm,
and sometimes a degree it's not what it used to be in terms of its value. And I
yeah.
realized that I was spending a lot of time and a lot of money when that could be used elsewhere, building experience. And I realized you can start your own business, which is something I've done. Like you can make money in other ways, which is something I've done. And I just realized that in university, I was just sitting there for hours at a day doing stuff that I didn't care about. And I was pretty much wasting a lot of my life. So that's what prompted that decision to drop out.
'Cause it sounds like what you're talking about there is that you've actually found your own path and said, okay, as much as it might be convention that I should go to university and finish that, you've actually decided, no, that's not right for me. Is that
Yeah.
what was the case?
Yeah, it was just a point because the funny thing is like it's not like I actually want to go to university like out of my own choice,
Mm,
but it was also a thing of oh, because then you can have a degree and have a foundation, and I do
mm,
believe all that, but it was just the choosing my own path
mm.
outdid what university was going to do for me, and I consider it one of the best decisions I ever made.
Yeah, because that's interesting. Choosing your own path. I love those words that you just used. What I mean, when we talk about guys that are lost and not being able to do that, what do you think the difference was for you to say, okay, this is my path. I'm actually going to do this rather than just going along with what was expected?
Well, I think it's because I had a strong foundation in what I was doing because I was doing stand up at the time,
Hmm.
writing a novel at the time, like Hive was I was writing Hive. So it's I had a really strong thing that I was passionate about and really enjoyed enough that I was able to and I wasn't like financially successful with it at all at the time, but it was enough to say, okay, if you drop out, you can spend more time doing these things that you really want to do. So that's what it came down to, is having that I want to do this, because school will always be there if it doesn't work
Mm.
out. So yeah.
So you had that you really want to do this. Um, but again, I mean, a lot of people might have that, but you had the courage to actually go and do it. What do you think
Yeah.
that was? That because you said it wasn't financially successful. It doesn't sound like you had a lot of resource to draw upon. That
No.
sounds like it's a pretty courageous step that you took and said, "Hey, I've got stand-up comedy," which we know, a lot of comedians don't. Yes, there's a few that make a lot of money, but a lot of them don't.
Yeah.
You're writing a book, which writing a book is not, it's not no guarantee of a huge windfall of cash, and certainly not while you're
Mm.
writing it. What was the what gave you the courage to do that? Do you think?
Um, I don't think anything really gave me the courage. It was just it was just a moment of, you just got to take a leap. Just taking that leap of faith was what it really was. I don't think there was a big external factor that came with it. I think it was just, hey, you're not enjoying university at all. If I think about enjoying university more, I might have not dropped out, but it was just, I just realized that for me it was a bit of a scam because I had a good job. I had a good job at the time, and it was all, oh, so you can get a good job. And it
Mm.
was just, the world's changed from needing university to have a job, right? So
And that's the interesting part that I find about what you've done, because I understand that, and I know a lot of people have done something similar where they've looked at it and gone, well, actually, the cost benefit, I don't really need this education to get where I'm going,
yeah.
and they've made that similar choice, and that's the point I'm trying to get to with the difference between what you've done, because it doesn't sound like you're lost. You
No.
And that's the whole point of this, is trying to understand what that framework was for you to go, okay, I'm a man, I'm at university, and I'm working, I'm earning good money here. Was it that realization of having the experience of being out there and going, okay, now I'm paying attention, I'm working, that works. I don't know if that's a pun that I've just said work twice in that same sentence, but you realize, you've looked at it and gone, well, I'm earning money here. What I'm doing there is not going to be provide me with any extra benefit. I'm going to do this instead. I said, I'm just trying to work out what the difference would be from someone who just goes, oh no, I have to do that, and lumbers away with, as a lot of people do, with something that they don't like.
Hmm. Yeah, I think it just came with the realization that I only have one shot at life. And
Ah,
I would have been in university for 2.5 more years if I had kept in it. So I didn't want to waste my time. I had wasted some time beforehand, and I just realized I don't have a lot of time to waste now. So yeah.
mm. So this not wasting time, only have one shot. Was that something that you grew up with? Did that come from your parents, or was it an awakening? How?
No, it was more of an awakening that comes over time, and of course wisdom from other sources that, we all hear that all the time of, you only have one life, start living, motivational YouTube videos or whatever. But
Yeah.
it's just like, that's just classic advice, and it's just something that I really took to heart and really sat on it. And the funny thing is, like, when I quit, I sat down with my dad, and I told him I'm thinking about dropping out of university,
Yeah.
and he got really mad. He was like, "You better rethink your decision." And that's what I told him. Yeah, I already dropped out because I was on. I already dropped out of my classes,
Yeah.
and then I told him. And the funny thing is, like, what actually really sparked it, that
Mm,
push, was a YouTube video. Because I looked up
mm,
on YouTube, is university a scam? And I watched this video where this guy was talking about how bored university students are, and which is how I felt. And he was talking about how sometimes, people don't even use what they learn in university on the job force, that the job force is
mm,
that's the real school right there. And that's when I was like, I called my brother and I said, oh my God, it's a scam. It's a scam. And I freaked out. And then I went on the site, and I was just sitting there just
Yeah.
with my mouse, just like looking at all my classes, and then I was just like, okay, fuck it, and then I just dropped out, and then that was it.
I love that.
Yeah,
What about from the perspective with your dad? Because some of those, I know from my perspective with my dad, especially when I was younger, that relationship is kind of, your dad's a big figure in your life, and so
yeah,
you've gone there and you've dropped out, and I know, and I've heard it said that the boy doesn't become a man until his father dies, mainly being that he can then start making his own decisions. And for me, my father died over a packet of chips, and I'm speaking metaphorically. My dad's still alive, but I was staying with my dad,
oh, okay,
and my dad's quite frugal, and he buys the no-name things. And I was eating. I bought my own chips, and I bought some Pringles, and I'm eating Pringles in the kitchen. And my dad walks in and says, "What'd you buy them for? They're expensive." And I didn't get defensive. I didn't argue. I just said, "I like them." And he goes, "Yeah,
yeah,
but they're expensive." And he goes, and I just responded, "Yeah, I like them," calmly. No, no, again, not defensive. And he kind of went, "Oh." And from that moment, we had a different relationship. It was
mm.
almost as though he could, you say you make your own decision. What was that like for you going to your dad and saying, "Hey, what was that process going like?" Because I'm was he still that influential figure at that point? And well, obviously he was, because you didn't tell him that you dropped out. You told him you were talking about it.
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
what was that? I mean, and this is what we're talking about from being manly. Your dad is a big influence. What was that like to go to your dad? Where did that? I mean, obviously you dropped out, so you'd have to tell him at some point, I'm
Yeah.
guessing. Tell us about that.
Well, it was scary because at the time I lived with him, so I wasn't in the spot so I wasn't in the place where I was like moving out. So it was just it was very scary.
Yeah.
And it was just, I just had to do it. I couldn't, yeah, and you were right. Like, I wasn't going to play the whole, oh, I'm going to pretend I'm still going to school thing. It was
Mm.
just, I just had to make a choice. And it was really scary. And I didn't know what would happen. And then he got really mad. And then he started charging me rent, which was actually fair. That was actually fair. Like, that was totally fair. I get it.
Yeah.
But all that stuff was like really good. And then I
Yeah.
remember he got his friend to come talk to me about it. Like, he
Yep.
tried to talk me back into going to university. And I was like, yeah, I'm just not interested in going. And they just couldn't figure out why.
Yeah.
And I just let them know why. And, I just had to go through it. And he's accepted it now,
Yeah.
kind of. Like, I was with him recently.
It takes a while.
We were on a trip, and it was funny because he would just bring it up like randomly, like, "Oh, you should have finished," and I'm like, I had to make my own choice. It's like, I think he's always probably gonna be like that. I get it, because
Yeah.
as a parent, you want what you think is best for your kids, but what you think is best sometimes isn't what's best. Even if you
Mm.
have the best interest in your heart, that doesn't mean you know what's best for another person. So
Yeah. Well, that's what I wanted to understand from that perspective, because I mean, and that comes back to that quote of, the boy doesn't become a man till his dad dies, because he stops getting those, you should do this or you should do that.
yeah,
And that's why I say my dad's died metaphorically, because he doesn't give me from that Pringles moment. He doesn't. I'm not coining that as a phrase. Actually, I shouldn't say that. Branding.
Pringles moment. You should Pringles could. Dude, if you use that
Yeah,
as an
only if I'm going
ad,
to get some revenue from it.
from that Pringles moment, like, I work in an ad agency, I know these things. They'll
Well, there you
eat
go.
it up because it's like a mushy, like, oh, relationships with fathers and sons, and then that Pringle. But they'd probably put more highlights on how good Pringles are.
Yeah.
Like, instead of saying I like them, you'd be like, I love them. So, I love Pringles,
So
and
if I
then your
see that
dad
in an ad some
converts.
point in the
So
future,
yeah.
I want a
You
royalty
better
check,
you better keep this so then you can sue them if they use that.
Exactly. But it
Yeah.
is that moment, and this is where I'm wondering from that perspective, because you said it was really scary, but you did it anyway. Is that part of what you think affects, the people that are feeling lost and lonely? Because isn't fear is something that stops us from doing things, and if we're stuck in that fear moment, we're certainly going to feel not like we have a purpose in the world. Do you think that's part of that we need to have more education? We'll come back to the role models shortly, but about having that courage to go, hey, it's scary, but you've just got to do what's right for you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think a part of being lost is to get out of that. I think
Mm.
it comes with going outside of your comfort zone. and
Mm,
changing things about your life or your patterns, or in so many different realms, you
yeah.
could be lost. So I do think it just comes with, and going outside of your comfort zone is scary. So I do agree that that has something to do with it.
Mm. And from that perspective of role models, because I'm a lot older than you are, and I was a child of the '80s, so to speak. I was
Mm.
born in the '70s, but child of the '80s. So my role models included people like Michael Knight, David Hasselhoff, as with his cool car
Right.
that talks
Yeah.
to you, that kind of stuff. Do you think, from that perspective? I mean, we went from Michael Knight, the A Team, that kind of stuff, to I don't know who's that guy that does drugs or who made all these drugs, the chemist that made drugs. I've forgotten what that show was.
Walter White?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
the TV show? Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So we've gone to is that part of what you say you're saying is we don't have those role models anymore? Because and I look at it, I'm actually rewatching the He-Man series from the original
Mm.
He-Man series where they have the moral at the end of the show.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the little more, yeah, that's funny.
Yeah. So do you think that's part of that problem? We've kind of shifted to these, the Walter Whit type characters as being the ones that are out there, and we don't have those genuine, morals or good standards that we hold ourselves to.
Well, I think when I talk about role models, I mean, like, I'm talking about more the in-person kind of
Okay.
deal. So it's like, I think, for me anyway, I didn't really have a lot of, say, male teachers growing up. So then when I did get a male teacher, it was
Mm,
really in fourth grade. It was a really special experience
yeah.
to have someone who understands and to connect with another man. It was just, and it's like, sure, I had like the occasional basketball coach or whatever, but I wasn't surrounded by strong men
Mm.
growing up. So I think that's a big, difficult part that a lot of people can underestimate how important it is.
What do you feel that you missed from that when you say not surrounded by strong men?
I think I missed definitely having some guidance in, virtues, especially masculine virtues, and having to figure out a lot of stuff on my own, which
Yeah.
could be argued as a good thing. But yeah, I think it's just like, and also I think it kind of interrupts what it's like to be a boy. I like,
Mm.
especially in school, I remember we would, play we would play war, like we would build war bases with like
Yeah.
blocks and stuff and build tanks and armies.
Yeah.
And a lot of the women would be, a lot of female teachers would be like, "Oh, you can't do that! Oh my God, no, no war, no!" But that's just natural stuff for a boy. And I
Yeah.
think it gets pressed and gets crushed, and they try to push it away. Like there's a difference between like building an army base and actually like throwing a block at your friend's head. It depends how hard you throw, it's like, so it's like, even like, yeah, it's just, I think they kind of suppress a lot of boyish behavior. That's just natural.
Well, it's one of those things too. I mean, yeah, it'd be nice to live in a wonderful utopian society where everyone, just hugs each other every day. Um,
Yeah.
but the reality is we don't live in that world. So being able to build, fortifications that can protect you if some horde comes over the hill is probably a good skill to have.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, because and there's research that shows, from that perspective, the boys roughhousing is actually quite necessary for a boy's
Yeah.
boy's development, I should say. And so what you're saying is, from your perspective in growing up, there wasn't, you missed a lot of that is from because you didn't have those broader male role models in your teachers, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. Is that from that? Yeah, because I look at that, and because again, I was quite lucky. I mean, I went with my dad. As much as golf and playing lawn bowls is not that exciting, it was as a young boy, it probably was a little bit exciting, but I was always around different men, and I'd go off and play with them as a
Mm.
forward playing golf. 18 holes of golf. That's 3 or 4 hours with a bunch of guys
Right.
that I don't
Yeah.
know, older guys that I'm asking questions of. Is that part of that case as well? Because they talk about boys are taught not to ask for help, to do it by yourself. Is that something that you experienced, or you had to? Did you? I'm guessing you've asked. But listening to what you were saying, it sounds like you had a few people that you asked for help. Is that the case, or?
Yeah, I mean, I think I was afraid of asking for help, but I don't know if it has anything to do with, I think it more has to do with me being a stubborn person and more of a prideful person.
Yeah.
But I don't know, like, I think maybe that sometimes I do believe that it's hard to ask for help, but I do believe in trying to really put your best foot forward and actually trying to figure it out yourself
Mm,
first instead of just, oh, I don't know this, and then asking for help. But it
yeah.
is tough. It does feel like, oh, am I an idiot if I ask this question, or are they gonna
Mm.
think I'm stupid? So yeah.
Do you think that's just a male thing, or do you think women have that problem too about feeling like an idiot if they ask for help?
I think everyone has that problem, especially in certain areas of life. Like it can
Mm,
be, I think it's more of a stubbornness thing or a pride thing than anything else sometimes.
yeah. Do you think we need more safe spaces for boys where they can say, "Hey, yes, give it a go. Get out there and give it a go."
I 100% believe that boys need spaces where they can be around strong men and just develop uh like their masculinity depending on their age, and just a place that understands what it's like to be a boy, and it encourages that strong male behavior and doesn't shame them for emotions either, and
Yeah.
not like this isn't some like Spartan fight camp I'm trying to
Yeah.
start,
No,
but
no,
like
no.
where I'm like, but that's not but it's like, I think the good thing about men today is we are in touch with our emotions, and we are in
Mm,
touch with the idea of figuring our shit out,
yeah.
like I'm actually, starting to look inward. But the
Mm.
problem is I think it can be a bit too soft. I think the solution is somewhere in the middle of, that old school and the new school. So yeah.
Yeah, that because that was a question I had was where's the line drawn between being namby-pamby and going, "Oh, I stubbed my toe, I can't do anything,"
Yeah,
to,
exactly. Yeah.
going, "Look, I just need to suck this up and move forward," and where that
Yeah.
line is. Do you have any idea of where that line might be?
I mean, I feel like every single situation is going to be completely different with that
Mm,
question.
yeah,
I do think that there's like no one likes a tattletale in school.
yeah,
Don't be a tattletale. Like if
yeah.
you're like super young, or like there are certain things that I think you shouldn't cry about.
Mm,
Like I used to work with kids like after school programs and summer camps and stuff, and certain kids would cry over stuff that's you're too old to be crying over this.
yeah,
And it's a little harsh, but it's kind of true. And there's nothing wrong with being a little harsh and having that fire,
mm,
bringing that fire to someone. But I do think it depends on the situation, of course. So yeah,
yeah.
I don't have a real answer for that. It's tough.
Yeah, and it's very subjective to the circumstance, and it's just, is it a case of just being aware of, what the circumstance is and making that assessment going, "Well, what do I need to do and what is my role to play here?" I mean, if you're in a situation, let's say you're in a crisis situation, your car's broken down, you're in the middle of the woods, you're the adult, and, there's 5 children, and you break down and start crying, going,
Yeah.
is that
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
yeah, so and is that part of maybe what it is that emotional awareness that we need to have, being, okay, not only emotional awareness, but situational awareness and going, what do I need to be doing in this situation? Is it that awareness that we need?
Oh man, that's a really good question. Yeah, I think so. I think awareness is a really good point. Um, I guess but then it's also you don't know the depth of what someone else is going through. So
Mm,
I think it just comes down to trying to trust your gut and just accepting that you might make a mistake. But
mm.
yeah,
I love you going there, making mistakes. Because it seems to be, there's that ego that guys have around making mistakes. Is
yeah,
that,
for sure.
have you experienced that? And from your perspective also, or maybe you don't have to admit to it, but put it in the wider world that you've seen people, their ego gets in the way of when they've messed up?
Yeah, I mean, I've made so many mistakes in my life, and I think a lot of my biggest mistakes come from not wanting to make a mistake. So it's like, for example, it's like if I don't ask a question about something, because that's like,
Mm,
oh, I don't want them to think that I made a mistake here, then that leads to bigger problems. So yeah,
yeah.
for sure.
How much of that relates to not listening as well, making mistakes? Because I mean, I put myself very much in that category. Certainly, when I was younger, I knew everything. No one could tell me anything. So, and then I'd go off and drive off a cliff, basically,
Yeah.
metaphorically speaking, because I just didn't listen to what they said. How much of it, from a man perspective, being manly, is about listening to what's going on around you?
Oh. You have some really good questions. I think it is important to listen and to be attuned to what's going on, but it is true that at a certain point you have to plant your feet down and say, "This is what I stand for. This is what I
Mm,
believe," but be willing to possibly change your beliefs.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So much of this stuff just comes down to like situational and
Mm.
what's going on at that time. So
And you mentioned their belief, and this is where we talk about because there was that stereotypical, I don't know if it was stereotypical, but I was in the Australian Special Forces, and all the guys there, they could express emotions, they could ask for help, and it only dawned on me recently that we had to do a psych test before we went there. So I'm pretty sure you don't
mm,
do that role in Special Forces unless you've got the ability to deal with emotions and
right.
ask for help and that kind of stuff. So I'm guessing we were all fit that profile to do that. But from that side of things, is it having this ability to actually that stereotypical man, so to speak, your Arnold Schwarzenegger, is banded out there. Well, maybe not him personally, but that type of stoic, never ask for help is put out there. But and do you think we've got to a point now where we're starting to realize that actually it's not one type? There's multiple different things that can be. There can be a guy that stays home and looks after the house while his partner goes off to work, male or female. Let's keep it for everybody. And but you know. Is that where are we at this stage now where that's acceptable for do you think for a guy to do those kind of things that would generally stereotypically for women to do?
Um, I mean, I think that maybe it might be outwardly acceptable, but I still don't know if I know any stay-at-home dads where the mom worked and the dad didn't,
Mm.
unless the dad was out of a job at the time. I don't think I've growing up, I don't think I knew any family that was like that, where like
Mm,
both weren't at least working. Do I think it's acceptable or accepted? I don't think I think it might be accepted in a broad sense of like no one's gonna make a big deal out of it, but I think people would still make fun of that guy, like secretly.
mm,
Like behind closed doors kind of deal, or it would just be a certain feel of that person's not a real man kind of deal. I think so.
yeah,
So I don't think it's like fully accepted.
yeah. Do you think I mean, do we need to have that more discussion about that being, looking after kids?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's fine if that's what somebody chooses to do. It's not really my place to decide how someone else's family is, but I do think personally, I think men thrive when they have some kind of purpose outside of just family. I think every human should have
Mm,
that, but I think especially men have more of a motivation to have a bigger driving force. So I don't know if it's healthy for a man just to be a stay-at-home dad and not have anything outside of that.
yeah, that's an interesting point that you mentioned that we thrive with a bigger purpose. Because I heard um, mm, a lot of people talk about the fact of giving, helping others is actually gives you a bigger purpose.
Mm.
Um, Is that something, you think how do we find this purpose? Do you think do you have to find it or can you choose it? I'm referencing Star Wars here where you
Yeah.
control it, but a pilot that controls you.
Yeah.
Is that, can we go, okay, I'm just gonna do this. I don't know what I need to do, but I'm gonna do something. Is that what we need to be doing?
Um, I think it just comes with well, like, when it comes to like finding a purpose or
Mm,
whatever, I think it just comes with experimentation and just being in tune with yourself, trying things, even if some things you can do for a few years and then decide it's not for you.
mm,
But I think it just comes with experimentation and living life and failing and succeeding.
mm,
And then eventually, I think that you'll find something that you at least enjoy.
yeah,
And it doesn't even mean you have to be like the biggest or best at it, just something that to strive towards and always to have a higher goal. Cause I don't think it's a healthy thing of go to a job I hate, come home to a family, watch TV.
mm,
I think even if you have a paint like for like 30 minutes a day, that could count as like a
yeah,
higher thing that you love. So
yeah, I love that. That's awesome.
yeah.
I know it's late, well, early. It's early for you.
Yeah,
Very
yeah, nice
early.
and early. Yeah,
Look, I
gotta
don't
have
want
some
to.
breakfast soon.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. So I don't want to hold you up much longer because I know you need to get to bed. If you were to sum it up, what would you think, as a men should be looking at in being manly?
what's one thing I would look at? I would honestly say the biggest thing is to choose virtues and live by virtues and actually have
Ooh.
things that you believe in and like look at the type of person you want to be, the type of life you want to have, and consistently strive towards that. That's just what I think huge part of being a man is.
That is so powerful. I love that. That is like I just got chills when you were saying that.
Oh, thank you.
That is
Yeah.
so really, very wise. Um, Jeremiah, it's been such a pleasure having you on the show. I'd love to chat with you further. Maybe we can organise another catch up sometime if you'd like. When at a more convenient hour for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, it's been very very insightful. And I said I personally would love to have a further conversation with you if you're up for that. But thank you at this stage for taking the time to be on the show. It's been wonderful.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having me. This was a good show.
Thank you for being part of the Share.care community and helping people around the world prosper. You're creating a bigger pie for everyone to share. The more people contributing to the world being a better place, the better the world becomes for others and for you.